And I had a lot of downtime. So I would write during that time.
Mhm.
And then after writing so much, I had so many children's books. I was like, now it's time for me to do something with these books. So let me go and do something, but how am I going to market it? And it became this whole creation of Rella B.
Welcome to Story Power, a bi monthly podcast where my guests and I chat about stories and creativity in all different styles and formats. My name is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden, and my goal is to promote what Dale Carnegie stated in his famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He said, instead of condemning people, let's try to understand them. Let's try to figure out why they do what they do. That's a lot more profitable and intriguing than criticism, and it breeds sympathy, tolerance, and kindness. To know all is to forgive all. It's my firm belief that the goal of most creative people is to try to understand themselves and others. That's what makes artwork of all kinds so compelling. But more than that, the personal stories of my guests promote understanding as well. Roger C. Schenck, a cognitive scientist, said, human beings are not ideally set up to understand logic. They are ideally set up to understand stories. It's my hope that Story Power will help us understand each other better by sharing the stories of my guests. Hello, Story Power listeners. Today is episode 122. And I'm talking to Rella B. That's her handle for her podcast, which is Reading with Rella B. And she is an advocate for children and their creativity. And I love your jacket, Rella B. The people can't see it, but it's like child. It's a child friendly jacket.
Thank
So,
you.
so welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And I just want you to tell about your story because you were working in the corporate world, I think, and then you moved to doing something more satisfying. So tell about how you made that transition, and why you are an advocate for children and their creativity. And do you write books? So tell all about that. I'll just let you tell your story.
Thanks so much. So basically, I started off with a love for writing as a child. I love
Mm.
writing books. I technically made my own book that was like published and bound when I was in third grade. It was an autobiography. And we had this fun program that came and hardbound all of our books after we illustrated them and wrote them and edited them. And when I did that, I was like, this is something that I would love to do in the future. And so I
Mhm.
continued writing. And after I went to school for education, I worked in the computer literacy department for a school for K through sixth. And then I worked in the technology department for Washoe County, and I loved it. But I didn't want to stay in one spot. I really liked traveling. I wanted to see the world. So
Mhm.
I left the district and I went to become a flight attendant so I could travel. But
Mhm.
after becoming a flight attendant, I got kind of burnt out after about 5 years. I was tired of being gone all the time on
Mhm.
the road, missing my friends and family. And I had a lot of downtime. So I would write during that time.
Mhm.
And then after writing so much, I had so many children's books. I was like, now it's time for me to do something with these books. So let me go and do something, but how am I going to market it? And it became this whole creation of Rella B, which is
Ah,
an amalgamation of my childhood dreams, basically. Like,
that's cool.
thank you.
And so do you read your stories on your podcast?
Yes. So I read my stories on my podcast, and I actually have other people come on the podcast and read their stories as well, such
Oh.
as authors and other children. If they want to send in stories, I can read it for them, or they can come on and read it as well. I've had some child authors come on, and I just want it to be a creative space where people come on. We have fun, we do riddles, we stretch a little bit, we do interactive activities, and then we hear a story by either myself or another author. And
Mhm.
I do a very similar thing on my YouTube channel, but my YouTube channel is visual. So
Mhm.
sometimes the activities are jumping away from boxes that are falling on the screen or doing stretches, and it's all really fun, and it's for early readers. I want people to enjoy reading, and I feel like one of the things that we miss is seeing reading done in content, or seeing people enjoy reading, because lots
Mhm.
of kids now don't enjoy reading. They don't really see that as something to do in their spare time.
Yeah, that's fun. They don't see it as fun. Yeah.
Right, it's a chore for them.
Yes. Yes. Well, I mean, they do have things they have to read for school, so I can kind of understand that.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I've even heard and talked to people on my podcast who say, oh, while I was going to college, I had to read so much. So after I graduated, I just didn't read for a while because I was just so burned out reading things that I had to read. And then slowly I came back to reading for fun. So, in a way, I can kind of understand that.
I can, and I do relate to that. I do really like to read, but I like to read more factual information.
Hmm.
And so I love having people come on and read me their children's books. And I love reading children's books just because it's like a breath of fresh air. Um, but it is really interesting because now I see that there's so much content all the time that I've actually started listening and consuming content on like 2x speed. So I can just get through as much of it as I can because I'm like, there's not enough time in the day. Like, I have to speed this up.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I mean, now that I'm not commuting anymore, I don't really listen to podcasts or anything. I have to make time to do it. Like I could listen to them, I suppose, while I'm cooking or something, but it's only been in the last month or so that my I've found a solution for my arthritis pain, and so for
Oh,
a
good.
while I couldn't even. My husband had to kind of do the cooking because I couldn't stand up for very long.
Oh,
And, but now I'm back. I'm back to cooking again. So, yeah, and the pain is much less and I can move around a lot better because I found some great exercises and
oh,
things.
good.
So, but yeah, he commutes. I mean, he has one more day of work and then he's retired. But he listens to the podcasts while he's commuting. And then he's gonna start walking again when he retires, so then he'll listen while he's walking,
Right.
but we live on a bunch of dirt roads, and dust just makes my sinuses go crazy. So, when if and when we move to a place that doesn't have dirt roads, I'll probably start walking again a little bit, and then I can listen to them, but he just listens to them while he's doing other stuff. I mean, he's really into that, but he's listening to tech podcasts mostly and
Okay.
art podcasts because he's a graphic artist. That's one of his art things. Yeah,
Oh, nice.
so you listen to books and children's books are short. Do you listen to any other kind of books?
Yes, so I mainly just read children's books because I have a daughter, so I
Mhm.
read them physically to her. She
Mhm.
loves reading books, which is really nice.
Mhm.
Um, she's part of the reason that I started all of this as well. But for myself, I like to read a lot of like parenting content, self-help content. So for that, I listen to it on Audible at
Mhm.
2x speed when I'm commuting,
Mhm.
when I'm working out, when I'm sitting outside, like at any time, I try to read it, and then if I need to go back and listen to something slower, then I can. But for the most part, I feel like I can grasp everything at like
Mhm.
1.5 to 2x speed.
Mhm. Oh, wow, yeah. Yes, sometimes I have a hard time with that because I start thinking and then I lose track of of what they're saying. But yes, so any way that you can read, that's great. Now I have been looking at your website too, and it's so fun and colorful.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, so tell about your website.
Yeah, so I have a ton of awesome stuff on my website. I'm actually going to be working on it a little bit more because I do offer a lot of author resources for other children's book authors,
Mhm.
but I don't have a space for that on my website. So I will be adding that very shortly.
Oh,
And,
nice.
there's parenting blogs on there that are
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
fun little like tips for different situations, making reading fun, activities that you can do. There's author resources on there as far as like author visits and different ways you can market your book.
Mhm,
And then I'm going to start having author highlights where we're talking to the authors and finding out more about them and why
mhm,
they wrote the books that they wrote.
mhm,
I love collaboration. So I wanted my website to be a place where people can go get resources, get free activities, see my
mhm,
books. And, if they want to peruse a little bit, there's something there for everybody. I do have fun merch, which is also branded just like the clothing that I wear,
mhm.
which I feel like is fun.
Really? Yes. Yes, that's great. So you have a lot of different ways that you reach out to children, but also people who are parents or teachers who deal with children and help them get excited about reading or teaching reading. So that's great.
Yes, reading literacy is really something that I hold dear to my heart. And
Mhm.
financial literacy is another thing that I'm also very, very passionate about.
Mhm.
So, I do have a free financial literacy workbook for young kids just to talk about the different values of a dollar, cents, different things you could do with your money, budgeting concepts. And that's just free on my website. And I also have one of my books, which is Mama, I Got a Dollar. And it's about a little girl who finds a dollar and then she's just talking to her family, and her family's telling her what she can do with that dollar and
Mm,
different concepts of saving, spending, what debt is, what interest is. And it's a fun little book, but with that book comes a lot of different activities. So I do have the free workbook, but I'm also working on a board game that will be a fun board game that can be um, played anywhere from pre-K to high school. So there's like different levels of the game. I'm
uh-huh.
very excited about it.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh, that's so creative. I love that. Now, I recently just talked to Freeman Lind, who is a certified financial planner, and he has a business where he doesn't sell anything. He just advises people
Okay.
on their finances. And he and I were saying it's really sad that they don't teach, financial like budgeting or how to, financial planning in school, really. So,
Yes.
I think at high school level, junior high and high school level, that would be really great because they're getting ready to move out and be on their own. And they need to know, things about credit cards and the different percentages of the uh, rates that they give you the card or the loan, how to search for good loans, or I mean, those kinds of things. Those are kinds of things that he would teach if he were teaching high school. But yeah, he helps people do it on their own. Yeah. I taught high school and I was teaching English and theater. But yeah, I was thinking, yeah, that would be a really great financial literacy would be a really great thing to have.
Oh, go ahead.
What? Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Um, it's such a missed opportunity to not do
Mm.
more of that in schools. I know in elementary schools, a lot of times they'll gamify classrooms and they'll give them, like little coins or things that you can go and you can
Mhm,
buy trinkets at the end of the week with all of your stash, like
mhm,
dollars, which is cute. But in high school, you could base it off of grades very easily. Like every A you get five of whatever
mhm,
dollars it is, but give them actual incentives. Like getting trinkets at the end of the week is cool when you're little. That's not necessarily teaching you anything like substantial. But if
mhm,
an A was worth $5 and an F was negative $5, and then by the end of the year, if you don't have your grades in the right position and you're in debt, for things like that, then that takes away privileges that you have. Or if you
mhm,
have extra like funds, air
mhm,
quotes, then you can get out of maybe homework that isn't
mhm,
recommended, or maybe you can just pass a test because you've worked that hard. I feel like if they really made it so you could see the effects of how much debt can cripple you as a person,
yes.
then it would drive that lesson home in a safe environment to them where they're not actually
Yes.
going out and getting credit cards and ruining their credit.
Right.
Grades are important.
Mhm.
So, but
Mhm.
if you're not a good student, like you can still
Yes.
survive once you're out of high school, realistically. But if
Yeah.
you mess up your credit and you're in the real world, that will mess you up for houses, cars, like things
For
you
a
need
long
every
time
single day. Yeah.
until you
So,
can fix it. Yeah, right.
right.
Yeah. I think that one of the schools that I taught at, one of the high schools, did have a course on like the stock market. And they, but it didn't teach you budgeting. It didn't teach you save, how to shop for the best places to save your money, where you got the
Okay.
best interest rate. I'm not sure it taught you those kinds of things.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I was a substitute teacher, so I know because I substituted in that room a couple of times for before I became an actual certified teacher. But yeah, so yeah, those are really important things. When I was going to high school, I think that was sort of rolled into what was called um uh, oh god, I can't even, my brain just went blank. Where you learned how to cook, you learned how to sew,
Home economics.
home economics. Yeah, it was kind of rolled into that a little bit, but it was mostly budgeting for meal planning and, that kind of thing. So I went to school in the late 60s and I graduated in 71. So that was a long time ago. And yeah, but it would be nice to have a more robust kind of thing. Because like Freeman was saying, they teach you these higher mathematics, but when are you going to use them unless you're going on to be a scientist or something,
Right. Right.
I don't remember how to do algebra or I mean geometry was a kind of a visual kind of thing, so I could kind of maybe revive some of that memory of how to do that. But yeah, calculus, I didn't even try to take calculus. I didn't even know it. Yeah, because I couldn't do it. I couldn't remember how to do how to do the equation. So, but if I had a practical thing, where
Right.
I want to have this much money for food every month, and I want this much to pay the bills, and I want this much for entertainment, and this much for clothes. That's a practical thing. This much
Right.
for transportation, this much for saving. So yeah, I love that. I love that you have a lot of different kinds of literacy that you are planning on having on your website and maybe even on your YouTube channel and your podcast. And I love that you talk to authors of children's books because I've only had 2 or 3 maybe of them on my show. But when I was working in Montessori schools and daycare centers and child development centers, this was way long, long time ago. I loved reading the books and knowing something about the authors and yeah. So that's really great. Do you review new books that come out for children?
So I do review a lot of books. There I do. Yes, the short answer is I do review a lot of books.
Ye
I know you, I mean, the listeners can't see the
Which
books, but this is like half
Whoa,
of the
large
books that
stack.
I have been sent to review. There's at least probably 25 in that pile, and I have drawers and drawers of books that are sent to me to review and read, and yeah, it's pretty
And
fun.
yeah, it is. One of the things that I loved was seeing the different illustrations. That's one of the things that I really liked about children's books were the illustrations as well as the story. But sometimes they go hand in hand.
Yes.
So do you talk about the illustrations too?
So on my YouTube channel, you can see all of the illustrations.
Mm-hmm.
On my podcasts, you can't see the illustrations, but if it's a really illustration heavy book,
Mhm,
sometimes the author will describe specific pages. I
mhm,
do encourage people with really illustration heavy books to actually just do the YouTube because
mhm.
sometimes it's harder for younger children to imagine stories.
Mm,
Um, so it just
yeah,
depends. Like if a whole page is just a picture, I'm like, that's probably not the best picture book for the
for the
podcast.
podcast. Yeah, because sometimes the picture is what's telling the story.
Right.
Uh, yeah.
And I
I
do
mean
love the pictures because my daughter, she's 3, and we'll sit down and I'm like, "Okay, do you wanna read the book or am I gonna read the book?" She'll like,
mhm,
"I'll read it." And she'll just go through and make up her own story to the pictures, and it's
mhm,
so cute. I love that.
mhm. Yeah, I love that too. I love that too. Yeah. Or we have a grand niece who is 2 and she loves to play Candyland, but she plays it her way, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not really the rules of this, but that's okay. Her parents just play with her.
Yes.
And they let her do the same with her books. They just let her tell the story the way she wants to tell it, which, that makes it fun. It
Right.
for the kid, later on when they are actually reading, they kind of remember that, "Oh, I had the freedom to kind of make up my own story," you know?
Yes. And I
So
love that so much. That's one of my favorite things. And then I don't have to read the same book for the 50th time, so it's a break for me, and she tells great stories.
oh, that's so great. So maybe she'll be a writer someday too.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's so great. So what else do you wanna say? You wanna share with the listeners?
I mean, other than that, that's pretty much the gist of Rella B and what
Mhm,
I do. Um, I just created a brand around myself, but my name is Gabriella.
mhm, mhm.
And so I go by Rella B because my grandma used to call me Chickarella because I love Chick-fil-A. So she started calling me Chickarella and then shortened it to Rella. And for myself, when I decided to write under a pen name,
Mhm.
I picked Rella B, and it's Rella B Books, as if Books was my last name. Specifically because when I was younger, I loved this book series called the Junie B. Jones series.
Oh,
Do you
that's cool.
remember that? Do you remember the Junie B.
Uh-huh.
Jones
I
books?
don't think I was too old, I think. Yeah.
Well, I loved it. It was about a little girl. She was kind of ornery and she was in like first, second grade when I was in the same grades.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And she used to always be like, "Oh, my name is Junie B. Jones. Don't forget the B." And I was like, "Oh, I'll be Rella B. Books." Like I like to go by Rella B or Rella B. Books.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and when I was younger, I wanted to design my own clothes and I wanted to be able to be an actress and all these different things. So now I get to live those things as Rella B. So it's a
Mhm.
passion project for me to also drive home very important lessons for kids and try to make things
Mhm,
that may not always be prevalent in media today
mhm.
stand out a little bit more. So I
Mm,
try to use my creativity not only as an outlet for myself, but as something really good for children and families as well.
that's cool. So do you ever go on book tours or book signings for your
So
books?
I have done a few local book signings and
Mhm,
readings.
mhm.
I am going to start picking up more author visits for the next school year. I just started doing all of this stuff about 7 months ago.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, so I've been really busy just trying to make sure I can get all of my processes and systems down. Like podcasting was new, YouTube was new, doing content
Mhm,
for kids was new. There's a lot of research to be done. So I'm using this summer to kind of get ahead and then start doing more in-person events,
mhm,
vendor
mhm.
fairs, author visits. I'm very excited about it. It is a little bit overwhelming because it is a lot of things to do.
Oh my gosh, really. And creating not only content, but creating merchandise for people to purchase. That in itself is a lot. Yeah, but
Yes.
it sounds like you have the energy to do that. And the
While
love.
chasing a 3-year-old too, yes, with the love.
Oh my gosh, yes. I would go home from working in the daycare center and I would collapse. It was I was so tired, and I was young, back
Right.
then. I was young, but yeah, they have a lot of energy. Yeah,
It's hard to keep up with.
really, yeah, yeah, but it's gonna be so great for her to, watch you build this business and write your books, and it'll be inspirational, hopefully.
Yes, she likes to at first, she didn't really like to watch the content, which was funny. She was like, "You really be?" But now, like, she loves it when I make a new video, she's like, "I wanna see it," and then I kinda use her as market research to see what she
Mm.
responds to well, and things that maybe she doesn't like as much. It's hard because she's 3, but
Mhm.
it does tell me a lot about my target audience and what I'm trying to do, so it's fun. I try to include her in as much as I can, but also not have her in as much social media
Mhm.
because I'd like to wait until she's a little bit older. If she wants to read books when she's older and do her own little version of the show, I would love that. But right
Yes.
now, I just try to keep her away from
Yes.
that.
Yes, really, yeah. Oh, I've had so much fun. I wanna know, do you have anything else you wanna say?
If you are looking for me or any of my books, you can find them on rellabooks.com or on Amazon if you type in Rella B Books, or if you just go to Google and type in Rella B Books, all of my stuff will come up.
Yes, and I will have all your social medias, your website, and your podcast link in the show notes.
Oh,
So,
perfect. Thank you.
yeah, so, maybe a last shot, what are a couple of your favorite children's books that you wanna share?
So Junie B. Jones is a classic, and I'm sad that every time I bring it up, nobody knows what I'm talking about because it was one of my favorite books growing up, quite honestly.
Mhm.
And a new indie author that I really enjoy a lot is Ron Karas, and he writes the "This book is a mistake" or "This book is perfect" books. Have you heard of those? It's about a little frog.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yes, his books are very fun. I like those a lot. Um, I also really love the series Rennie Rue's Adventures. It's about a kangaroo that goes on adventures in different states. And in
Oh.
this different states, they tell you different facts about like
Mhm.
dinosaurs or different historical things that happened there. They're
Mhm.
really interactive and fun as well. So I get to see so many books all the time. It's really hard to remember off of the top of my head which ones are like the absolute my favorite. Um, that's why I
So
try to review them and, like, give them all of their light.
Mhm. So people are gonna have to go to your website to see all of your favorites
Right.
that you've recommended and that you have reviewed. That's great. Thank you so much for being my guest. I have enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. This has been so great. I really appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed the show. If you like what you heard, please share it with a friend and give us a rating and or review on your favorite podcast app. It will help people find us. I invite you to join my Patreon community at patreon.com/storypower, all one word. Or if you like, you can subscribe to Story Power on Apple Podcasts. It's my aim to build a community where we discuss the stories we love and talk about what we learned from them. I offer extra audio content and story suggestions to my patrons on both platforms. Remember, as Philip Pullman said, after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world. Let's spread the story love. Until next time, this is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden. Thanks for listening.